Hello from Venice, where I'm learning so much about the Jewish communities here, past and present. I wanted to share some thoughts about the Parsha from here in Italy. In Parashat Lekh Lekha, after God promises Abraham that his descendants will be like the stars in the sky, there's a strange pasuk, which is emblematic of the impact of syntactic ambiguity in the Torah. V'ha'amin ba'Adonai v'yachshaveh lo tzedakah. He trusted in God and he considered it as tzedakah, as righteousness or merit on his part. I'll leave the word tzedakah aside for the moment. It's true that it has more than one possible meaning, and we'll come back to it later, but the first part is extremely ambiguous. The first he is obviously Abraham. Abraham trusted in God. But who considered whatever it is as tzedakah? I'll pause for a moment for you to come up with your own answer. Whatever you said, you're probably correct, at least according to one of the commentators who famously disagree on this issue. Obviously, there are two options. It could be that Abraham trusted in God, and God, in turn, considers this to be tzedakah, considers this to be a very charitable move by Abraham. If you read it this way, congratulations, you correctly anticipated Rashi, who says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu chashava la'Avram mischut v'litzedakah al ha'amana shehe'amin bo. God counted it to the merit of Abraham that he put his trust so completely in God. God made Abraham a promise, Abraham accepted it, and God counts this as one of Abraham's positive attributes. Ramban, on the other hand, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, is skeptical. He says Abraham is literally the man who's going to agree to sacrifice his son as an expression of faith. Why would it be a big deal that he smiled and nodded when God promised him something good? Instead, Ramban says Abraham trusted in God and counted this promise as part of God's tzedakah, that God would grant him descendants. Because even though God had told him that he has a great deal of merit, scharcha harbeh me'od, he was still worried. And this is the moment when he fully believes in God's kindness. So if you read it this way, you correctly anticipated Ramban. I find both readings potentially convincing, and I believe this brings us back to the less confusing but still ambiguous part of the pasuk. He considered it as tzedakah. We're used to the meaning of this word being something like charity, something kind, something we give out of the goodness of our heart. And yet, we also know that tzedek is justice, so that on some level, tzedakah is what we do just to make the world right, to insert some justice into a world that seems so wrong sometimes. Tzedakah operates on both of those levels. It can mean both things at the same time. And so maybe it's okay for the verse to work with both of these meanings. In Rome this past week, I took a tour of the Jewish ghetto and the synagogue. As we walked through the neighborhood, we saw posters about the hostages. We saw an Israeli flag on the wall of the ghetto, and we saw people raising money to send to the suffering families. And our tour guide, whose family has been in Rome for generations, told us that just last week she took in a family from Israel that needed a safe place to stay for a while. Her father has been in Italy for generations, but her mother, she said, was a refugee from Libya as a child. And she told us a family took her in. So how could I not help this family that needed a place to stay? I was so moved by the bonds of Am Yisrael that function deeply across geography and nationality. And when I reread the Parsha, I thought, this is the dual meaning of tzedakah, making things right, doing what is just, and also tapping into our reserves of kindness and giving deeply of ourselves and our resources to help those in need. I will be thinking of our tzedakah-filled community at Ohev as I spend this Shabbat learning more about the community in Venice. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.